the Offer and Compromise program is a program that was developed by the IRS to give taxpayers a fresh start on life. A taxpayer, in exchange for a lump sum or in exchange for a set amount of monthly payments, can eliminate past tax liability in exchange for the promise of future compliance to the IRS. So if the taxpayer promises to pay in full and on time and file on time, then the IRS will forgive their past tax liability. It sounds like a great deal, but it's also a tremendous deal for the government as well, because the taxpayer is essentially getting back into compliance, they're paying everything, and the government loses that cost of having to administer the taxpayer's file. So it's actually a win-win for both parties. With that said, there's been a lot of negative press associated with the Offer and Compromise program. You'll see a lot of these ads on TV that you can settle your tax liabilities for pennies on the dollar. And while that is true, a lot of people have abused the program. And they submit offers and compromises that don't have a chance of being accepted. Offers and compromises work on a pretty strict formula, which I will get into in a minute. The most common type of offer and compromise is what we call a doubt as to collectability offer and compromise. So a doubt as to collectability offer and compromise is one where you're telling the IRS, you should take my offer and compromise because you're never ever going to collect this money from me. And that is by far the most common type of offer and compromise, because most people who submit offer and compromises are fairly cash strapped. The second type of offer and compromise is what is called a doubt as to liability offer and compromise, where there is a genuine dispute over the tax liability, and that liability has not reached a point where it has been adjudicated in tax court. So for example, if you have been subject to an audit and you disagree with the audit results, one of the options that you have is filing a doubt as to liability offer and compromise. That's usually not the best approach. If you are thinking about filing a doubt as to liability offer and compromise, you should consult with a tax professional. We can help you steer the ship in terms of whether a doubt as to liability offer and compromise is acceptable or whether there is another avenue of relief that you should consider. The third type of offer and compromise is something that we call effective tax administration. Effective tax administrations are offers and compromises that don't fall into the doubt as to liability bucket, or they don't fall in the doubt as to collectability bucket, but they fall within another bucket that is still viable grounds for the IRS to accept the offer. So a good example of an effective tax administrative offer is, I have a client who is a little old lady, and she's living off the last little bits of her retirement and her pension. Now, she's got enough to pay the liability in full. There's no question about that. But if she pays the liability in full, she's not going to have any more money to support her basic living expenses or to support her medical expenses. So we file a effective tax administration offer and compromise in order to get rid of her liability. Even though she has the ability to full pay, she doesn't qualify for doubt as to collectability. We're putting her into that effective tax administration category because of her circumstances. So effective tax administration is a kind of a catch-all category that you can use to get rid of liabilities.